Takže, dámy a pánové, a už předávám slovo našemu hlavnímu řečníkovi, Jonathanu Clementsovi.
Okay, well, I always wondered how many Czechs you could fit in one room. And there's my answer. Before I begin, I'd like to point out that your exits are here and here. And I know that someone will have to leave at some point during my speech. Now, if you get really bored, for example, you can probably sneak out. No one will see you do that. I'll be showing 4 clips. When I show the clips, and I order Lord Grasso there in the booth to show the clip, then that's a good chance to sneak out. If, however, you are a giant blue Muppet who has to leave at 5:30. Yeah. It'll be quite obvious when you leave. And that applies for anyone who has to kind of struggle their way out. So if that happens, in order to avoid any embarrassment, I would like you to stand up, raise both your hands and say, "I can't take any more." And then you don't have to worry about hiding, because we'll all see you and we'll all know. So my job today is to talk about things that people have got wrong about anime. Now you are all anime fans, except you. Everybody else is an anime fan. So you know what anime is, you understand it implicitly. I'm rather sad that we haven't got Martin interpreting for me today, because I was going to make him do all kinds of things. But instead, as his punishment, he just has to watch. He may well shout questions. If anyone does have any questions, I want to ask in Czech, Martin will interpret. If you want to ask a question in Japanese, Martin will have a go. If anyone here speaks Navajo, good luck. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about things that people get wrong about anime, things that the mainstream thinks, the way that anime is misinterpreted by so many different kinds of people. It's very difficult to establish what anime actually is. The Japanese published a book about it in 2011 called Anime Gaku, Anime Studies, and the first 100 pages is them arguing about what anime actually is. Our understanding of what anime is actually, we could just say it's animation from Japan, but the word anime comes into existence in the 1950s, and it actually starts being applied in the 1960s by Osamu Tezuka, the creator of Astro Boy. Now, Astro Boy is not something I saw when I was a child. As I understand it, the Czechs never got Astro Boy either. But Astro Boy changed the way that animation worked in Japan. And the reason for that is that Tezuka decided he wanted to be the Japanese Disney, but he didn't have enough money to be the Japanese Disney. So he decided to work in television. He decided to adapt one of his own manga in 1963, Tetsuwan Atomu, the Mighty Atom, which we call Astro Boy. And he decided to put together a cartoon TV series. Now this had never been done before. People had done TV shows that were like 3 minutes long. Nobody had done a weekly half-hour TV show. And Tezuka went to one of his animators and he said, "How difficult can it be?" And the animator said, "Well, it's very difficult. We would need 3,000 animators, which is 3 times the animation population of Japan. And they would have to work 28 days per week." Which is quite hard. Although in Japan, maybe not. So Tezuka found ways of making a half-hour show, but making it shorter. Most famously, he worked with limited animation. A film runs at 24 frames per second, normally. Animated film tends to be animated at 12 frames per second. We call that animating on 2s, so every second frame is a new picture. Tezuka animated on 3s, which means he only used 8 frames of animation per second. That already saves him 66% of the likely cost of making a cartoon. He also found other ways of limiting time. For example, this piece of toilet paper, unused, I hope. This is 1 minute of animation, okay, 1 minute. Now, this piece of toilet paper is 30 minutes. I need a volunteer, you'll do, Martin. Come on, let's make it work. Let's just hang on to that end. Right, okay, so this is, actually come with me, Martin. Come on, Martin, come on, onto the stage. Here we go. Now, this is 30 minutes of television time. Now, if you, you're holding it the wrong way up, Martin. Other way. There, go. Now, if this is 30 minutes, how do you fill it with a cartoon show? You go to the television company and you go, okay, I have a 30-minute show. But it's not really 30 minutes. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 minutes is advertising. That's not your problem. You don't need this. The advertisers will fill that for you. And then you think to yourself, well, maybe we could have closing credits when the names come up at the end. We don't need animation for that. We could just roll the same thing. We only need to make it once. So actually, we can take 2 minutes off that. And if we have a really long opening song, 2 or 3 minutes, we can take that away. And what if every 12 episodes we had a catch-up episode where we just showed all the stuff that's already happened? We basically get a free minute every season. And then what we could do is if we had like transforming robots, we only need to make the transformation sequence once. Maybe it takes 2 minutes. So this is what we're actually working with. It's much shorter than you think. Thank you, Martin. My beautiful assistant may return later, who knows? So that's one of the things that Tezuka did to save money. So people think that Japanese animation is all really, really high quality stuff. Actually, no. Astro Boy was very low quality. If you were going to make a TV show using animation on 2s or animation on 3s, you probably need to use 10,000 cells, 10,000 images per episode. Even if you cut it down, even if you take out the transformation sequence and the opening and closing credits, even if you do that, you're still looking at 10,000 cells for half an hour. That's what an OAV uses, if it's a good one. Tezuka sometimes made a cartoon episode of Astro Boy using only 1,500 cells. There was a lot of people standing very, very still. There was a lot of people running like this. The longest pause in anime I've ever seen was actually in Evangelion, where people stood in the lift for about 45 seconds. Maybe they blinked. Well, blink and carry on. It's pretty easy. So this is how we save money. Now, the animation business in Japan hated him for doing this. There was one critic who's called Hayao Miyazaki. You may have heard of him. And in the 1980s, he said Tezuka ruined anime. You know, when I was a young animator, I wanted to make really posh, award-winning films, and Tezuka came along and he ruined it. What a bastard! And that was actually Miyazaki's obituary of Tezuka. Wasn't very nice. And Tezuka found other ways of saving money too. One of the things that he did is he undervalued the cartoon. He made the first episode of Astro Boy, and he said, how much did this cost us? And he said, it cost us 2.5 million yen to make one episode. And he went, great, how much does a live action television episode cost? And his producer said, well, about 600,000. And Tezuka said, I want anime to be cheaper than live action television. And his producer said, well, it isn't, it's 5 times as much. And Tezuka said, let's lie. Let's lie about the cost of anime. No one needs to know how expensive it is. And he actually said, it's my plan to kill all the competition. I will lie about how much anime costs. I won't charge people for my intellectual property. I mean, I've written Astro Boy, so I can just basically, you know, give it away for free. but we won't tell the television company how much it costs to make. And that way, nobody will ever compete with us. We will be the only anime company that exists. Well, that didn't work. What that actually did is it meant that anime was always too cheap to exist in its own right. Anime always had to find sponsors from somewhere else. It had to find toy companies to add money. It had to find pharmaceutical companies to offer sponsorship. There's a baseball anime called Star of the Giants, and it was sponsored by a vitamin drink. If you drink this vitamin drink, you too can kill yourself playing baseball. It was baseball. And Tezuka also found foreign money. Astro Boy was the first full-length TV series in Japanese animation, but it was sold to America within 8 months. It was on American television in 1963. But this caused new problems for Tezuka, because the Americans wanted a very different cartoon show. They wanted a cartoon show for kids. Tezuka wanted it to be for everybody. And so the Americans kept on insisting that every episode should end at the end of the episode. No double episode storylines, no evolving storylines. Everything has to go back to the beginning every time. They had some very, very strange stipulations for Tezuka as well. For example, he made a show called Kimba the White Lion, or Jungle Emperor. The actual Japanese title is Jungle Emperor. And the Americans call it Kimba the White Lion. And it's about a lion in Africa. And the Americans said, that's great, we like this idea for the TV show. Can we not have any black people in it? And Tezuka said, well, there are a few black people in Africa. It would be kind of wrong not to have them. And they said, we're very, very worried about the black audience. We think they'll be insulted by appearing in your cartoon show. You'll make them look like cartoon characters. He said, they are cartoon characters, it's a cartoon. And they said, we just want white people. So the writers said, can we, and then they said, and no nudity. Everyone has to wear clothes, even the animals. And so Tezuka says, so what, I'm sorry to say that my lion is naked. He's not, and by the way, Donald Duck hasn't got any pants. So the writers eventually convinced the Americans to let them have nude animals. I know it's shocking, nude animals. And they also let them have black people in Africa, but only if they were good. So there are lots of good black people in Kimba the White Lion, but there are only evil white people and animals without pants. And I'm going to show you a clip now from Kimba, because it's what anime was in 1964 and 1965, actually. It began in 1965. It's a colour cartoon, it's very safe and happy. And Tezuka actually was always very regretful about Kimba, because after he made Astro Boy, Stanley Kubrick offered Tezuka a job. Stanley Kubrick wrote him a letter and said, I'm making a film called 2001, A Space Odyssey, and I love your artwork. I love the image that you depict of the future. It's so Spartan and curvy and white, and I'd really like you to be the art director on my new film. And Tezuka said, oh shit. Probably not those exact words. It's something similar. He said, look, I've just started making Kimba, and I can't leave Kimba behind. So he went off and made Kimba. Anyway, so I'm just going to show you just a little, the opening credits of Kimba the White Lion. You feel free to dance. Lord Curaçao, if you will, please.
Kimba, 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 Kimba. Who's down in deepest darkest Africa, Africa? Who's the one who brought the jungle pain? Who's the king of animals in Africa? Kimba the White Lion is his name. When we get in trouble and we're in a fight, who's the one who just will turn it around? Who believes in doing good and doing great? Kimba the White Lion is the one.
Oh, there we go, that's better. You can stop now. Stop. Please don't make them watch the whole episode. It'll go on forever. So, you may have noticed Kimber and all of his little animal friends are always running that way. It would be quite normal if you're making a TV show for people who read in this direction, for them to be running that way, but they're all running backwards because it's a Japanese show. And Kimber was what we call a hidden import. And that means that until the very late 1980s, Japanese animation was sold to the foreign public without mentioning Japan. They tried to keep Japan quiet. They kept Japanese names off the credits. They changed the names. Sometimes they pretended it wasn't happening in Japan, even though it's very obviously Tokyo, and there's a Tokyo Tower, there's a monster attacking it, and everyone's saying, oh no, Paris is in trouble. No, Paris is not in trouble, it's very obviously Tokyo. Now, the Czechs didn't get many hidden imports. You did get a few. You got Willy Fogg, for example, which was a Spanish-Japanese co-production. The animation was all done in Japan, but they tended to keep the Japanese names off the credits. And you got the Moomins. You had the Moomins, right? Yes. I don't know what it is in Finnish. In Czech, it's probably Moomin. But anyway, you had the Moomins, which is also a Japanese production, based on a Finnish book, but Japanese production. It's only in the late 1980s that people actually start to treat Japanese animation as something from Japan. A Japanese origin becomes something you can sell to people after the release of Akira. When Akira came out, the fact it was Japanese was one of the best things about it. And Akira was released in 1988 in Japan, at the end of a period between 1986 and 1988, a dozen of the best anime ever made were all released in Japan. So you have a lot of middle period Studio Ghibli, you have Akira, you have Wings of Oniamis, you have Urotsuki Doji, not necessarily a good title, but you can sell a lot of tentacles. And I can see where all the Urotsuki Doji fans are, just from who laughed at that. And the fact that something's on video means that you can bypass television. You don't have to have little happy dancing animals anymore. You can have violence. You can have sex. Not literally, but you know, you can have it on the screen. In fact, we made a video yesterday. No. The fact there were a couple of erotic anime before the 1980s, but the beginnings of anime pornography were actually in 1984. January 1984 was the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth pornographic video in Japan that was animated. I understand the Czechs got one of these videos by accident. I understand that Tesco's had 4,000 copies of Bible Black, which sold out in a day. Who was buying that? Was it you? Okay. Somebody bought Bible Black, 4,000 people bought Bible Black. People use anime pornography as a way of attacking anime fans. For example, in Britain, the newspapers did some very unpleasant coverage of anime hentai. And they said some absolutely stupid things. I've got some newspaper quotes actually. This is from, what have we got here? Okay, this is from a newspaper called the Daily Star in January 1993. Outraged members of Parliament are calling for a ban on horrific snuff cartoon videos, which show scenes of rape, mutilation and murder. These sick, Japanese-made manga films, apparently, have reached cult status over the last 2 years among youngsters in Britain. A recurring theme is sexual assault on young girls by supernatural beings. That's not little lions running around in the jungle anymore. What's happened? Well, the thing is that the companies that were releasing the videos didn't want to target children. Children don't buy videos. Children don't buy toys. Children make their parents buy toys. They make their parents buy videos. So if you have something that is an adult video, be it sex or violence or just adult themes, you need to sell it to teenagers. And so the companies that were releasing anime in the 1980s all over Europe deliberately made anime sound like it was the most dangerous thing you could ever see, even though you could just buy it in Tesco's. I love it that the Czechs have Tesco's. It's so sweet. And the British Board of Film Classification, which is the censor, the British censor, said something outrageous about Japanese animation. They said, and this is in their official report, this is a government report in 1993. In Japan, it seems, these films provide sex and violence for men who watch them after work, in male clubs, where sexual favours are bought and sold. This is bullshit. I mean, it doesn't even hold up logically. If you were in a brothel where people were selling sex, why would you be watching a cartoon? It's just not true. It's racist. It's okay to say this about the Japanese because they're 8,000 miles away. No one will check if you say something horrible about the Japanese. So the thing is, though, is that in the case of The Legend of the Overfiend, for example, Orotsky Dorji Chojin Densetsu, which is the best-selling hentai anime in Britain, it sold 60,000 copies in 1995. The size of anime fandom in Britain in 1995 was 600 people. So every time the newspaper said anime fans are perverts, were they honestly thinking that 600 people were buying 100 copies each? Was that really happening? Who buys 100 copies of the same video? Okay, yeah, there's always one person who says he does, just in case it wears out, you know. One to collect, one to watch. 98 others to give to friends and family, birthdays, Christmas, maybe one guy did buy 100 Overfiend. So the thing is that the hentai anime was not being watched by anime fans. If every anime fan in the country bought a copy of this hentai title, that still leaves 59,400 copies mysteriously sold to people who aren't anime fans. Anime fans get the blame when people complain about anime, but there weren't 4,000 anime fans when Bible Black was sold in the Czech Republic. That was being sold to other Czechs. It could be somebody you know. It could be your grandmother. You don't know. There were other dangers as well. Because Japanese material was presented as dangerous, the media jumped on the bandwagon. They started to use a Japanese origin as an excuse to say that something was bad, say that something was evil. I'm going to show you an example now of the way that the mainstream media viewed anime. If Lord Krasso is ready with the next clip, we can show you a clip of what the mainstream thought of anime at the turn of the 21st century. Lord Krasso, are you ready?
Welcome to Japan, folks. The local time is tomorrow.
Here's our room.
You're supposed to slide those doors open.
I don't have time for that.
Welcome. I am honored to accept your waste.
They're years ahead of us.
Mom, Grace, check it out. Dad's on TV.
Oh, yeah.
It's breathtaking. Look, about Japanese TV. Isn't this that cartoon that causes seizures? Mark, what are you doing?
All right, steady up.
I'll be right back.
Well, that cheese made me hungry.
Me too. Let's go to an authentic Japanese noodle house.
The toilet recommended a place called America Town.
Dad, you can come halfway around the world to eat at America Town.
I'd like to see the Japanese take on the club sandwich. I bet it's smaller and more efficient.
We now return to battling seizure robots.
Okay, there you go. So that's what The Simpsons made of anime. I'm guessing you've heard of Pokemon. I never know because, you see, Pokemon was released in 1997. Some of you were probably not born in 1997, but Pokemon is still going, and it became famous in 1997 on the 16th of December 1997 because of the famous epilepsy incident. For those of you that don't know, there was an episode of Pokemon where there has a special kind of attack which flashed at a certain frequency, which made 600 children have seizures and act like people did in The Simpsons. The news then showed the program again. This is a news report. Apparently 600 children have been affected by this program. Here's a clip. If you look at the medical records in Japan at that time, there's actually 15,000 supposed incidents. But that's not really true. What you've got is 600 children who felt a bit ill and were permitted to stay at home. They didn't have to go to school the next day because Pokemon made them vomit. And then you have 15,400 friends of theirs who've realised that if they say Pokemon made them vomit, they don't have to go to school either. So, in terms of the information that we have, Pokemon sounds like this awful, dangerous cartoon. It's not dangerous at all. It was unfortunate that they had that flashing epilepsy incident. It's unfortunate that they had one 6 months before that the news never reported, which also affected people. But they haven't done it since. It does tell us a bit, though, about the Pokemon audience. The Pokemon audience is children, even abroad. During the time of Pokemon, anime stopped being, in Europe, something for teenagers and students. After Pokemon, anime was a thing for kids. There's a huge line down the middle of anime studies between 1997, you should say I can't take it anymore, you can't just sneak. 1997, before that time everybody everyone who watched anime in Europe was an adult. After 1997, there's a whole generation that grows up watching anime. They grow up playing computer games. And in the 1990s, computer games companies are the major investors in anime. In fact, today, Sega, for example, owns a controlling share in one of the big animation companies, because the only companies that are prepared to put that kind of money in are companies involving themselves in what the Japanese call the media mix, which means you don't just make a TV show. You make a TV show which comes with a computer game, which comes with a manga, which comes with a plushie, which comes with a special line of sweets, with special pot noodles, with all kinds of stuff. However, the media then start to react in a different way to anime. Anime won't make you vomit, but it will take control of your children's minds. And to give you an example of how that is conveyed in the mainstream, I have my third clip for you, which Lord Cressel will now play for you.
Honestly, I don't see what they find so amusing about those things. They're so strange. Where are they from?
Well, it's some new big thing from Japan. I tell you, those Japanese really know how to market to kids.
I've got to collect all your Pokemon. I've got to collect them all so I can become real grown Pokemon Master.
By all the Pokemon, you're gonna have a happy feelings.
I have to become real grown Pokemon Master. That's to let you know
sweet chip Pokemon doll.
The chip Pokemon dolls are still last week.
What? Yeah, don't you know? It's all about the chip Pokemon video game now. Did you bring your special chip Pokemon game controller? Huh? No.
Oh, you didn't get a special chip Pokemon game controller. Jesus Christ.
Pokemon, what is primary objective?
To destroy the evil power.
I've got to buy all the chip Pokemon so I can destroy the evil power.
Damn it.
I've got to buy them all. So first I better go to Hawaii and visit Pearl Harbor.
Try to bomb the harbor. Ready?
Go!
I must buy them all. I must buy them all.
We must buy them all.
Try to bomb the harbor.
No, the video game gave Kay a seizure. This game rules.
Hello? Hello?
Welcome to Chip Pokemon Toy Corporation. Please state your name.
Red Harris? I own a toy store in America.
Please state your purpose.
I want to know what the hell you people are doing with these dolls, talking about bringing down American government and all.
I am President Hirohito, and this is Mr. Osen.
Pleased to meet you.
We understand you have big concern about our fine program.
Well, yes. Do you mind telling me what the hell this is about?
The American government lies to you. Join the fight for Japanese supremacy of the world, Forrest Gump.
Well,
That is so strange. I do not know how this could happen, but rest assured, I will make sure it does not happen again.
well, now, come on. I don't think that quite satisfies me.
You are American?
Yes.
Oh, you must have very big penis.
Excuse me?
If you are ever in an argument with an American, that normally works. But sometimes they show you, so... So anyway, Japanese animation is being regarded as something evil, something corrupting. This is something which even the Vatican has got involved in. Because there was a fundamentalist Christian group in America, that, where else, that said, if you play the Pokemon theme backwards, you can hear it saying, "I love Satan." This is not actually true. In fact, I think the Pope did play it backwards to see, and he discovered that no, they're not saying "I love Satan." So the New York Post, a very reliable newspaper, actually ran a story about the Vatican saying that Pokemon is okay. The Vatican has announced that the trading card and computer game versions of Pokemon are full of inventive imagination and have no harmful moral side effects. And they celebrate ties of intense friendship. Isn't that nice that the Pope said that? Unfortunately, he actually says the Vatican has announced that the trading card and computer game versions of Pokemon are good for you. The anime, presumably, will turn you into a terrorist. So, this all changes again at the end of the 1990s. Quite by accident, a Japanese film company was running low on money, and so they did a deal much to the annoyance of a Japanese director who really didn't want them to sell his material. The Japanese director is Hayao Miyazaki. He had, during the beginning of the video age, he had without his knowledge, the company had sold Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind to an American company, and they had really butchered it and turned it into a film called Warriors of the Wind, which was terrible. And Miyazaki was so angry about that that he set the price for rights, for intellectual property of his films very, very high. So only a big film company could buy it. And so nobody bought Miyazaki's product for 10 years. And then Disney bought his product. Now Miyazaki hates Disney So it was fantastic. He had to do a press conference after Disney bought all of his films, and he went, "Oh, I'm very pleased that Disney have bought these films. I really admire their marketing." That's all he said. Very, very angry man. But as a result of Disney buying Miyazaki's films, Mononoke Hime was released widely in America. This was also probably a mistake. After the unpleasantness with Warriors of the Wind, Miyazaki's producer, Toshio Suzuki, wrote into every contract that no Miyazaki film can be cut. You can't make it shorter. You have to keep every frame in the film. And this is a problem for Disney, because when they bought Miyazaki's films, they weren't all 80 minutes long. Some of them were 2 hours long. If you've ever been in a cinema watching a Studio Ghibli film, at the 80-minute mark, you start hearing seats banging because children are getting up and going to the toilet. Disney films are set at 80 minutes because that's what a child's bladder can take. Miyazaki's films are built for Japanese bladders, so they're much stronger. So there are all kinds of stories about what Disney tried to do. In the case of Mahjong no Takyubin, Kiki's delivery service, it was much too long. And they said, well, we promised that we wouldn't cut anything, but maybe if we ran it faster through the projector, it would be quicker. So they tried to do a version of Kiki's delivery service with everybody running around like mad. It's really frantic. But unfortunately that meant that the soundtrack changed and the music changed, and it was really obvious that they speeded it up. When it came to Princess Mononoke, Toshio Suzuki, Miyazaki's producer, sent a sword to the producers at Disney. He sent a samurai sword with a note on it that said, "No cuts." He's very, very good at getting his message across. So when the Americans got Princess Mononoke, they said, right, we're just going to release it as it is. It's probably a U certificate, right? It's probably something we can show to children of all ages. I mean, it's a happy little story about a boy in the forest. It's kind of like Totoro. I mean, no, it's not. It's about a vicious battle between different forms of the Japanese soul, and in the first 5 minutes, someone has both of their hands cut off. No cuts. You have to show it. So Princess Mononoke was given a relatively small release in America. It was on 200 screens, which was still better than most Japanese cartoons get. But it wasn't given a huge treatment because it wasn't a family film. Princess Mononoke was never a family film. Spirited Away also got a smaller release in Japan, but Spirited Away attracted the attention of all of those animators and film directors and fans who'd wanted Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki to get international attention. And, as you probably know, Spirited Away won an Oscar. This created a whole new set of wrong assumptions about anime. People started to think that anime was award-winning feature films. Every anime in the world will win an Oscar. It's not going to happen. You can't see Spirited Away on the video shelves and see Death Note next to it and think, well, they're probably the same, they're probably similar. Naruto is not the same as Spirited Away. Haruhi Suzumiya is never going to sell the numbers that Spirited Away sells. And so you get a brief period of international companies buying any anime feature they can find, desperately trying to associate themselves with Studio Ghibli's success. So the films of Satoshi Kon, for example, get international releases. I understand that Tokyo Godfathers was released in the Czech Republic. How many people, raise your hands if you bought a copy of Tokyo Godfathers? Okay, so the entire audience for Tokyo Godfathers in the Czech Republic is in this building right now. It's a lovely film, but it's very obscure. It's a pastiche of a John Ford cowboy movie set in Tokyo at Christmas with 3 tramps. And in England, it sold 800 copies. So it's very difficult to explain to people that if Dragon Ball sells 300,000 and Spirited Away sells 150,000, Tokyo Godfathers sells 800. People assume that anime is a brand. They assume that all anime is the same. All anime is not the same. There are some anime that sell to very, very small niches indeed, and I'll talk about one of those niches in a moment. Before I get there though, I want to show you my last clip of the day. And this is, it's a kind of genetic throwback to the 1980s. In the 1980s, Quentin Tarantino was working in a video shop. So he saw all of the sex and violence titles. He saw Wicked City, and Ninja Scroll, and Erotsky Doji, and Monster City, and anything with monster in it, and anything with tentacles in it, and Golgo 13. Don't get me started on Golgo 13. And so his concept of what anime was is a very 1980s idea. And ironically, something like Golgo 13, for example, is a Japanese attempt to give foreigners what they think foreigners want. The Japanese don't really like Golgo 13 that much themselves, but they think that Americans do. So they make Golgo 13 and sell it to the Americans. And Quentin Tarantino sees Golgo 13 and he wants something like that in Kill Bill. So he goes to the Japanese and he says, I want you to make me an anime sequence for my new film. 8 minutes long, we'll just put it in the middle of the film. And he goes to Production IG, one of the biggest of the modern anime companies. So Production IG go, yeah, but what do you mean when you say anime? Do you mean like Little Happy Bunnies? Do you mean ninja, possibly? Do you mean pretty boys who fall in love with each other? And he goes, no, I want murder and sex and violence. So the most widely seen piece of Japanese animation in 2004 was The Legend of Oren Ishii, which is a sequence, an 8-minute sequence in the middle of Kill Bill. I'm just going to show you a little bit of it now, because I find it very interesting that Quentin Tarantino should spend so much money trying to imitate cheap, crappy, violent B-movies from the 1980s, particularly because the Japanese didn't animate it in the way that he expected. When you look at Kill Bill, you can see it's been motion captured. They filmed it as live action, and then they've drawn over the live action film to make it look like a bad cartoon. But actually, it's got real actors. It cost them an incredible amount of money. It's a very, very expensive thing to do. But it's Quentin Tarantino's money, so they figured, wow, we can spend it, he can afford it. So anyway, this is Kill Bill. Coming up now, Lord Crassel, if you please.
Oren Ishii was born on an American military base in Tokyo, Japan. The half-Japanese, half-Chinese American Army brat made her first acquaintance with death at the age of 9. It was at that age she witnessed the death of her parents at the hands of Japan's most ruthless Yakuza boss, Matsumoto.
Okay, Lord Crasso, you can stop there. It just goes on like that. It feels like it goes on for hours, but actually it's only 8 minutes. So, if that's how anime looks in 2003, there is one final wrongness about anime that I've noticed lately. And it's based on a problem that has been troubling people in the creative industries all around the world for the last 5 years. And that problem is how to get paid. The Japanese call DVDs and videos packaged goods. That's what the term in Japanese for it. And they mean that if they sell you a DVD, you actually have a physical item in your hand that you can hold. And this is very useful because you can charge lots of money for that. You can make fans buy limited edition box sets, for example. And these have become a very important part of the anime market. People sometimes assume that all anime sell hundreds of thousands of copies. Now, we know that's not true. We know that Tokyo Godfathers only sells a few hundred. The worst selling anime ever in Britain was called IGPX, and it sold 18 copies. Now, bearing in mind that you're giving away 20 copies to newspapers to get reviews and get press coverage, they actually gave away more copies than they sold. Doesn't bode well. It's understood that anime has many different genres. Anime has many different areas. Not everybody likes Naruto. Some people like yaoi. Some people like, oh, there we go, there's a yaoi. There's a little yaoi cluster over there. Yeah, they're touching each other, actually. It's a very weird sight from here. And so, the problem is that we don't know, well, the mainstream don't necessarily understand when something only appeals to a very small market. Now, to give you an idea of how, what a difference this can make, I got a phone call. Are you filming this? Okay. I got a phone call from a well-known company that we will not name, and they said, we're a bit worried. We've just discovered that we sold 3,000 copies of one of our titles in one day, and it's a relatively old title. We had a box set that was £39.99, but it was on Amazon UK, so it's 20. Is that Nicole Kidman? Tell her I'm busy. We had £24.99 would be the retail price on Amazon, and it's free delivery, so it's quite cheap. It's a nice little box set, and it's sold 3 copies one week, and 10 copies, and 5 copies, 3,000 copies. Where did that come from? We think the sales have gone to another country. Can you check? So I typed in Japanese, into a Japanese word processor, cut and posted it into Google Japan. First hit that comes up is a man with a blog in Tokyo. And he says, I've just discovered that Amazon will accept foreign credit cards. I don't know, maybe he led a sheltered life, I don't know. So, I have a Visa card, and it works outside Japan. Who knew? So, I've just ordered a copy of, and it has been sent to me in Japan, and here's a photograph of the Amazon box it came in. Isn't it wonderful? Well, it's wonderful because it cost him £24.99, whereas the box set in Japan costs £250. Japanese video prices are substantially higher because they tend to sell only to a very small, limited market of insane fans. Now, you might think you're crazy, but would you spend £250 on a box set? Oh, you did? Okay, well, good for you. So, the thing is that when you charge that kind of money, you're selling to a very peculiar kind of customer. A good example. The example that I'm really building up to is moe, particularly kind of moe hentai. Because if you are a single man in your 30s with a job normally in information technology, I have to say, and you have a large disposable income, the moe sector can target you. And they can say, well, we've released a limited edition box set that is £500. And there's a special doll that is extra money, and there is a special CD that comes with it, and there's a special computer game, and they're very, very limited edition. You might only sell 500 copies of this. But if 500 people are paying £500 each to buy your show's particular merchandise, that's enough to make a 30-minute video. So you can actually sell anime to a market that small. The trouble is that the Japanese company then goes to a film fair and says to a European company, we have this new title. Would you like to buy it? I'm sure many people in your country would love this show. What they don't say is only 500 people like it in Japan. And this is a big problem for anime, because it's very difficult. When you have a big selling show like Naruto, that's great. And when you have a show like Death Note or Bleach, you know you can generate a big fan base. When you have a show that only has a very, very small audience, it's very difficult to sell it to distributors. And when distributors take the risk and release it, and then they don't make any money, they blame you. I mentioned packaged goods earlier, because you can only do this with a DVD, with a laserdisc, with something solid that people can hold. When anime is streamed, when it's digital and there's no packaged good, then the only way you can get your money is through advertising and through clicks. So if you have a site like Crunchyroll and you show Naruto and 100,000 people click on your site to watch it, you can sell micro payments, little tiny payments of a few cents here and a few cents there, and you can generate an income. If your show will only appeal to 500 people, giving it away for free won't necessarily help. They will still only watch, you'll still only get a tiny number of people watching it. And this could be a huge problem for anime, because some of the anime that you like are not liked by a large audience in Japan. They're not liked by a large audience anyway. It's actually a very, very small market. And the Japanese business is becoming more and more conservative, and it's clinging more and more to a very small sector of 30-year-old male audience members. And this could cause a problem in the future. I don't think it will. I think that there will be a new wrong thing that someone assumes about anime soon enough. I've given you examples of half a dozen wrong things that people think about anime. The latest one is that everybody likes moe. That's not true. I don't like moe. Do you like moe? But, good for you. She does like moe, really. It's true. So with that in mind, tomorrow there will be something new that's wrong. I hope I've given you some examples that show you how the mainstream can be so spectacularly wrong about what anime is. When I'm talking to you, I'm preaching to the converted. I'm preaching to people who love anime. But you know that there are people out there who want to find reasons to hate it. And the reasons that they find will change with the years, and they'll change with the generation. But I hope you can take away from this some examples of just how wrong people have been in the past, and use it to make non-fans feel a bit more stupid. Thank you.